business time now, and today we're taking you live to the snowy Swiss Alps. The World Economic Forum is taking place there at Davos. And among the 3,000 or so business and political leaders is our very own Kate Moody. Kate, over to you.
Hi, Catherine. Well, this year's World Economic Forum is kicking off with a bang. Xi Jinping expected to become the first Chinese president to address this gathering in the Swiss Alps. Now, a lot of the changes that have taken place over the last year, of course, very high on the agenda. A year ago here in Davos, no one would have predicted Brexit, Donald Trump, or the wave of populist sentiment that has swept across the globe. So how are business leaders dealing with all those changes? To help answer that, I'm joined by Bob Moritz. They're the global chairman of the consultancy firm PwC. Thank you so much for speaking to us at France 24. Now, your firm has just published the results of an annual survey of CEOs around the world who are perhaps more confident than we might have expected in the future of the business world. Why is that?
Yeah, so this question we asked the CEOs is, how confident are you that you can raise revenues in the next 12 months? And they're actually rising in their confidence. But this goes back to the short-term mindset versus the medium to longer-term risks and uncertainties that you just mentioned. So what they're focused on is day-to-day execution. How can I grab more market share? I've got a consumer base that's actually willing to buy. I've got some needs and some stability in the marketplace. I think I can execute fairly well there. But strategically, the combination of globalism versus protectionism, the combination of Brexit, the combination of how will the U.S. actually play, and how will China pivot, as well as the digitization and technology implications, huge challenges for them to be grappling with at a macro level, but that's 2 to 3 years away, not today.
Well, 2016 was the year of the backlash against governments. Is there a concern that the next backlash could come against corporations and their executives?
I think the backlash is already there. You see in our CEO survey that there's a difference between the mindset of the CEOs in terms of the benefits that came from globalization and their role in society versus the populist perspective. So when you look at the issues of income discrimination, job loss, and the like, that backdrop is already there and mindful in the CEO's performance and what they're thinking about. The question for them is, what do I do about it? And it's something that both governments and business have to work together to think about how do we engage and create the right opportunities for everybody, because the masses right now feel disinfected.
Now, we're seeing, of course, a lot of concern about the growing inequality gap, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. How do chief executives around the world recognize that, and what are they planning to do about it?
Yeah, so today I think it's at least being recognized. It came through clearly with the elections over the last year, and it's starting to come through with the social media mindset that they are mindful of as they look at sort of their brand and the reputation of those organizations. So now the question becomes, how can I actually deal with an appropriate value proposition for my employees and get my employees to feel better about the place? And how can the employees tell the story? But the reality is you still got people that don't fulfill their potential in terms of jobs. They don't have the salaries they think are appropriate to live. And the inflation risk that's right around the corner for us, I think, is also mindful of them. So their question is, how do I communicate a better story about the role of business in society?
Now, as we mentioned, Brexit is one of the top issues on everybody's minds here in Davos. What's the effect that we've been seeing for business leaders so far? How are they viewing the future of the United Kingdom? We haven't seen a huge drop in investment so far.
Yeah, so you haven't. And it's interesting because actually the confidence of the UK CEOs is actually very high, and the confidence of CEOs outside of the UK willing to invest in the UK in the short term is actually surprisingly high with the risk of Brexit there. And you look at the fundamentals in the UK, manufacturing's up, tourism's up, and the like, and there's a benefit for the FX position that they've got right now. So people are willing to invest. But how they pivot, and today will be interesting to listen to Prime Minister Theresa May, the question is going to be how hard of a swing do they have? And then the implications are probably 2 to 3 years away. CEOs today are trying to be more agile and adaptable. They've got to pivot very quickly. So how do they get speed into their execution? And that's what it's all about today, how to get that resiliency going forward.
Very briefly, as we head into 2017, what are the top challenges ahead? What are the top things on the minds of business leaders, their challenges?
The 2 or 3 most important challenges are, how do I have the right talent to actually be able to adopt and adjust? Second, how do I actually deal with a broader group of stakeholders and the populist perspective? And third, the implications of technology right now to my business, because it's tremendously disruptive and I got to be ready for a fast-paced world.
Bob Moritz of PwC, thanks so much for joining us on France 24. We're going to finish off with a quick look at how the markets are faring this Tuesday. The Asian markets mixed. Investors very much focused on Theresa May's speech, which will be taking place in just a few hours' time. The Nikkei with the heaviest losses of about 1.5% this hour. We'll be seeing how the European markets open in the coming hour. I'll be back with more from Davos.
All right, thanks so much, Kate Moody. We'll be looking forward to seeing you later on and throughout this week down there in the Swiss Alps.